Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by Maximum Fighting Championship Director of Media and Fighter Relations, Scott Zerr. Scott, how are you?
I'm great, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Great.
Scott, let's go back to the beginning. How does a newspaper reporter go from covering sports to becoming Mark Pavich's right-hand man over at the MFC? How does this all work? How did you get started doing what you're doing now?
Okay. Basically, things got rolling about 12 years ago now. Mark had just moved to Edmonton and got in contact with me via the Edmonton Sun newspaper that I was working for, and wanted to know about coverage for upcoming, I guess it would have been the very first MFC event. And unfortunately at that time, MMA still had a very bad reputation. The old human cockfighting, no rules, that sort of thing. So I wasn't allowed to cover MMA or the MFC period whatsoever. So basically it went from being a can't do it for the newspaper to volunteering some services as a ringside photographer, and then it became a part-time columnist for the MFC website, doing some feature interviews and just some opinion pieces. And then it went to being a more regular contributor to the website, to then becoming in charge of most of the media relations, and then after that it became all media relations, the press conferences, all the press releases, and sort of morphed into handling some of the fighter relations as well. So it was a fairly steady climb for about the first 5 years, doing various odds and ends, and then the last basically about another 5 years has been more everyday, hands-on, and much more involved.
How long were you working with MFC before it became a full-time job for you? How much time had passed before Mark Pavich said, "Hey, Scott, I want you on full-time"?
Basically, it was up until, I would say, about 3 years ago, and then it sort of went from being, a very interesting and very exciting sort of side business kind of thing, to becoming a real passion and something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. So, in the last 2 to 3 years, it's become basically an everyday sort of thing, and I've really enjoyed it. And the one thing that I've really can say about working with the MFC is not only is it fun and it's got some good challenges and things like that, but I think I've really seen some development in my own skills and development in myself as well. So I've got a lot of people to thank for that. Obviously, Mark and Mano Pavlich, and certainly the fighters. They've helped me realize things to do right and where we went wrong, and how to sort of grow in my own game.
Mm-hmm. As someone who was a longtime sports fan and was a sports reporter at one time, was it ever a goal for you to be like a front office guy in an organization? Was that something that you ever thought about being when you were coming up as a reporter?
Yeah, I would say definitely late in my sort of journalistic career, which would have been around 2003, 2004. In that neighborhood, the business had started to change, and then by the time I got out of it in 2006, it had really started to change as far as cutbacks and the way business was being done, and who was moving up the ladder and who wasn't. And I basically went from being a sports reporter and into the front office for a professional lacrosse team, and sort of did that on the side as well as doing the MFC, and then it just sort of became all about the MFC, which is absolutely perfect for me. And I really, after 13 years of covering teams for newspapers and doing some radio and doing some TV, I've really enjoyed being part of the team now. And I think that it's a big important part of what I am and what I do, and I really enjoy that team aspect of it. We have a great sort of obviously Mark's the owner of the show, but I would say if you're looking at it in sports terms, not only would he be the owner, but he'd be the president and the general manager, and then we have sort of a front office team, and then we have our players as our fighters. So I like to view it as a team, And I know a few years back, Mark and I talked very thoroughly about changing the perception of the MFC from a mixed martial arts organization into a professional sports organization. And there's been a huge development and a huge change in the way we do business when we took on that role of being not an MMA promotion, not an MMA show, but a sports organization.
Mm-hmm. What are your day-to-day responsibilities working for the MFC? Because I know there's not a big staff over at MFC, so you're a hard worker, and I appreciate everything that you've done for me. You're constantly emailing me anything I need, so I really appreciate your hard work, and I know you do a lot of stuff over there. Give us what's a day in the life of Scott Zerr? What are your day-to-day responsibilities for MFC?
There is no set day-to-day, which is probably the easiest answer I could give you, but it's also the most truthful answer as well, because if it was every day the same, it wouldn't be fun, and there wouldn't be any challenges and that sort of thing, and that's what I really love about it, is that there is no 2 days the same. And I can give you an example. I mean, this is the week of the fights, where MFC 37 is this Friday night, and I can remember 5 years ago, it would be full scramble mode starting today. Where's this, where's that, who's getting this, who's doing that, and that's part of what I'm referring to when I say about a professional sports organization. We've got to the point now, 37 plus shows in, that there doesn't have to be a full panic, and really, there shouldn't be full panic anymore. We should know what we're doing. You're always going to get little things that come up. This guy missed a plane, or this guy doesn't have a piece of his medicals done, but it's developed into a really well-oiled, smooth machine that we can really do our jobs well. And for me, that's making sure that the NFC gets the most media attention that it can. And I would say, without sort of a boastful measure, I think we get the most publicity of any MMA organization outside of anything that Zuffa does. Mm-hmm. And I'm really proud of that fact that our fighters and Mark get as much attention as they deserve, and as much attention as possible. And that's not just the MMA media, that's also mainstream media. And I think definitely outside of the UFC, the MFC, we get more mainstream coverage than anybody else as well. And that's made a big difference in the way people perceive us too.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard Mark Pawich say it in many interviews that, to work for him, there are no days off. So, I don't, want to say, maybe he's, exaggerating a little bit, but do you get any days off? Because he said, around the clock they're working. Christmas, Thanksgiving, all those holidays, there are no days off. So is that true? You don't get any days off?
Well, of course we get days off, because just like Mark, I enjoy my stints down in Las Vegas. There isn't, I think they refer to Disneyland as the happiest place on earth. For me, it's Las Vegas, and I don't gamble one penny. I just love being there for everything else that you can do in Las Vegas. Certainly, though, the MFC is a year-round business, and that doesn't matter whether we're doing 4 shows or 5 shows, or in the future when we're doing 6 to 8 shows a year. We have something come up, and I think that's what the MMA media and the mainstream media and many people that I deal with appreciate, is that we don't take days or weeks off after a show, because there's the next thing to plan. And when a media person like yourself calls and next week or 2 weeks from now and says, hey, we want to get Mark on, or we want to get Jason Zentgraf on to talk about MFC 37, we don't not reply because we're taking some time off. Or I don't give you the line of, Mark's taking some time off. No, Mark will pick up the phone and call you from Las Vegas while he's on holidays after a show. We just don't believe in taking time off as in closing the doors and saying, okay, don't bother me now till 6 weeks before the next show.
Mm-hmm. Scott, changing gears on you a little bit, there's a lot of things going on with the MFC, a lot of news. First, I'll just start off with the top one, kind of a surprise. When I was reading this story, I thought that, Elvis Mutapchis was going to be with the MFC for a very long time. He didn't renew his contract with MFC, signed with World Series of Fighting. What happened there exactly? Why didn't Elvis come back to MFC?
I think that Elvis took took an offer that was presented to him, and unfortunately his representatives didn't even give us a chance to make a counteroffer or supersede that offer. They wanted to go in a different direction. I think if you talk to Elvis, I think he was very, very happy where he was in the MFC, and I would go as far as saying that without a stint in the MFC, there wouldn't be a whole heck of a lot of people who know who Elvis Matacic is. Mm-hmm. So I'll say from my perspective that we did a lot for Elvis. Elvis was a very good champion for us, and we move on because there's a never-ending cycle of talented fighters who are going to come in our door, and we're going to make the most of them, and they're going to get as much as they can out of us. I think it's been a fantastic cycle of fighters that we've had. Some have left for other organizations, and I think the ones that have left to say, like, go to a UFC, like a Patrick Cote, they deserve a pat on the back for the work that they put in. I think if you ask some other fighters who left us because of management decisions, I think there's a lot that would look back on it and say, I made a wrong move. Because there is, as in everywhere in life, there's that grass is always greener philosophy. And in this sport, there is a lot of issues when it comes to the grass is always greener. They'll take that check over there and not realize just how good it is over here and what this organization has done for them. So it'll be interesting to see how things work out for some guys.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that the reason why there was no championship clause in his contract? Because, like you said, there's always, talent coming in and out. There's always these cycles of really good talent coming in and out. Was that the reason why you didn't lock him into a championship clause in that deal?
Well, he was signed for a championship clause in his contract when he won the title, which guaranteed us one title defense. Okay. And he did do that title of defense against Sam Alvey, and at that point his contract had expired, and, like I say, his management chose to go in a different direction. So that's why I say we got the most out of Elvis. He fought for the title. He won it very, very well, and he defended his title, and at that point, he and his team made decisions. So I think, again, that, we get the most out of what we can with our fighters, and a lot of them realize once they're here just how good a smart move they made by coming here. And case in point being the two of the guys that we've got on MFC 37 with Ryan Benoit and Anthony Burchak, is that not a lot of people knew who they were before they were signed for this huge bantamweight fight this Friday night. And all of a sudden these guys are doing interviews, and they've become really sort of up-and-coming stars. We excel at taking guys who you've never heard of and turning them into something.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many bantamweights are on the MFC roster? Because the only two we've heard of are obviously the ones who are going to be fighting May 10th. How many are on the roster currently?
We're going to announce some guys probably after this fight. Basically, we wanted to see how these two guys would turn out. But I think all the indications are going into this fight that the winner of Benoit Burchak is going to get a title shot by the end of the year, perhaps as early as MFC 38. But I think you're going to see probably in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 bantamweights and probably another 3 or 4 guys at 145 sign in the next little bit. And what I like a lot about that 135-145 division is that guys will fluctuate between their weights. We've already talked to a couple of 135ers who said, we want to come in at 135, and if we win the belt, we want to go up and challenge for the 145 belt. And at the same time, we've had 155ers come and say, okay, we want to come down to 145. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting, I think, for the remainder of this year, who sort of is in and not only in, but then moving within the MFC cycles at 135, 145, and 155.
Mm-hmm. How many featherweights are on the roster? Because there's only been one fight, that was Graham Spencer versus Shane Nelson, and there's no fights at featherweight on this card. How many featherweights are going to be on the roster?
I think you're going to see probably a half a dozen guys by the end of the year at 145. And what's really interesting is that Graham Spencer, you're exactly right. He won and looked very good against Shane Nelson at 145. Decided to take the the step up and fight at 155, fought Romo for the title, beat Mukai at 155. Now Graham's going to come back down to 145. So I think he may very well hold both belts at the same time. He's more naturally comfortable at 145. I think he's going to make a serious run at 145. It also opens the door back up then, because if he chooses to vacate at 155, now you've got guys like Romo would still be in the mix, and he's fighting Kurt Southern on Friday night. That's an awesome fight. Southern is just coming off a really close loss to Jonathan Novaes, so you've got Novaes in there at 155, and that's what I mean by that 135, 145, 155 sort of, it's almost like their own little subdivision of a community. They're a subdivision of the entire MFC stable, because I think you're going to see some really talented, world-class, high-ranked guys come in and really light up all three divisions.
Now, for Graham Spencer, will he fight for the 145 title, or will he fight and defend the 155 belt? Because Novaes and Spencer, that seems like a fight that could be made right now for MFC 38. What's the plan for him?
Well, the first and foremost plan for Graham Spencer is going to be to fight for the title at 145. After that, it'll be up to a conversation between Graham and the MFC as to whether he holds on to things at 155 or concentrates at 145. But I think the door, if he chooses to focus on 145, the door swings wide open for a lot of guys at 155. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the winner of Southern and Moraes fit right back into that title picture and possibly right away against Novaes.
Now, from one champion to another, Nathan Coy, the welterweight champion, what's his deal? Where has he been? He's fought outside the organization since winning the title. There hasn't been, that number one contender in the welterweight division step up where it would be a good challenge for Coy. Diego Lima was supposed to be that guy, but Coy's already fought him and already beat him. And from what I've heard is now they're both fighting with American Top Team, so they don't want to have that teammate versus teammate thing. There was another rumor that John Howard, the UFC vet, he was going to come in and possibly fight for that title against Coy. What's the deal with Nathan Coy right now?
Nathan Coy, he's in a holding pattern because he's one of these guys who the sun and the moon and the stars and everything else has to align properly to make a fight. He sometimes declares himself ready to take a fight, then we'll put a couple guys in front of him, and then he decides he's going to go coach on a reality show or do this or do that. So I would definitely say that Nathan's in a holding pattern for the next little while. I would love to see him fight by the end of the year for the title. That being said, he has to step up and say, okay, I'm ready to go. I know the date of MFC 38. Put me on that show. And it doesn't matter who he's going to be put up against. You mentioned the ATT thing. I don't understand it myself. I understand that he's with one ATT gym in one city, but the opponent that has been lined up for him on a couple of occasions has been with ATT from a completely other location, not even in the same state.
Right.
But ATT, in its wisdom, says we're not going to have our fighters fight each other. Well, then you're kind of putting, don't blame the organization when we've presented you with one or two or three options, and, well, we can't fight that guy, and we don't want to fight that guy. Well, it makes life pretty difficult, right? So, and at that point, we move on to other guys because we like guys like Graham Spencer, and when he was part of the MFC team, Elvis Mutacic, and guys like Smelino Rama. You could put their brother against them. You could put the guy they trained with last week, or some guy that is 10 spots higher than them in the world rankings, and they're going to go, sure, name the place, when do I got to be there, send me a plane ticket, I'm fighting. And that's the kind of guys we want in the MFC, these guys that sort of, feel like, fight when they feel like it. It gets very tiresome to deal with them, and we've got to the point now where we don't have to deal with them anymore. I'm surprised,
too, about this whole American Top Team thing because Nathan Coy, he hasn't been with American Top Team that long. I think the McGilvery fight was his first time training there full-time. He spent a majority of his career with Team Quest, so I don't really know the whole American top team.
And I'm one of the guys that really enjoys being around Nathan, because a lot of people will dog Nathan because he's a wrestler and a grinder and all that, but I find him a bit of the exception to that grinder rule, where he will look to beat you up when he's got you down. He won't just take you down and hold you there. He will look to do damage, as he did in the McGilvery fight. What I find frustrating with Nathan is that he seems to want to be in and then out. And, we just don't have a lot of time or patience to deal with guys who are in and out. It's got to be, I'm in. If I'm not fighting on the next card, please make sure I'm on the next. Please make sure I'm on the next one after that. And we never get that kind of vibe from Nathan. So, like I said, I hope to see him back, but he's got to step up.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, he's a really nice guy, and he had so much momentum after that McGilvery fight. He just absolutely murdered him. It was brutal. It was excellent fight for him. A lot of people, like you were saying, thought he was a lay and pray guy, and he just really took it to McGilvery. So it's too bad that it's been a while since we've seen him in the MFC. Now,
sorry, Mike, I was just going to say that it's one of those situations too where we want to keep fighters busy, but we also want guys who are ready to go, against anybody. We offered Diego Lima some fights, and I don't know, this and that and the other thing, and you won't meet bigger fans of Diego Lima than myself and Mark Pavlich, but when we're busy, we need to get guys lined up. So that's why, like for MFC 37 this Friday, we had this fight card done 6 weeks ago. The majority of the main card fights, probably all 5 of the 6 main card fights, were done almost 2 months ago, because all these guys stepped up and said, "Yep, no problem, I'll fight him. No problem, I'll fight him." We had one injury replacement with Chase Degenhart getting hurt, and he couldn't fight Sam Alvey. One phone call, Jay Silva. "Yep, sure, I'm in, no problem." Okay, that's the kind of fighters we want. We don't want to have injury replacements, but we want that attitude of, if you need me, I'm ready to go at any time against anybody.
Now, what's going on with the light heavyweight division? For a very long time, that was the most talent-rich division in the MFC. There was a time where you had Dwayne Lewis, Ryan Jimmo, Emmanuel Newton, Wilson Govea, just a list of really, really great fighters in that division. Ahsoka Ju, just a lot of great fighters in that division. What happened with light heavyweight? Why have we seen that division kind of not be the featured division for these last couple of shows in the MFC?
I like the word that you used there as far as feature division, because the division that's featured now is 185. That 185 division is an excellent division for us. We have an amazing amount of talent in there. And I think, again, when you talk in cycles, sometimes you could look at an organization as big as the MFCs and go, yeah, okay, that division has maybe fallen off a little bit because this guy retired and this guy's not fighting much anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So the focus becomes, all of a sudden I can get 4 or 6 or 8 really good guys at 185. They've all become available. We're going to grab them. So you grab Alvey and Henley and Luke Harris and Mutacic and Sam Alvey. You grab these guys and go, okay, now we're really going to focus at 185, because all of a sudden this talent-rich pool has become available. Now, maybe by the end of this year, 145 and 135 become a little bit deeper. It's all going to, come out eventually that, in waves where you have a talent pool come in and then come back out. So it's not that we don't want guys in any division. We're taking guys right from 135 to 265. It's just a matter of, sometimes you get a good number available in one division at one time, and you scoop them up and you run with it.
How many more fighters are expected to be added to the heavyweight division? Because after the Mike Hackert, Salimo Rama fight, a lot of people were wondering, it's going to have to be guys coming outside of the MFC to challenge these guys, because, on one side, Hackert cleaned out one side and Rama cleaned out the other, and now you bring Barnett, bringing him from the United States. How many more guys are going to be brought in? Because, there aren't that many guys. I mean,
right. There aren't that many that are at that level. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're getting guys who, you know, you have to be very selective about who you pick, which is why we grabbed Chris Barnett. We feel he's an immense talent. You know, I think who we bring in may match up as to who wins the fight this weekend, whether, you know, Romo wins or whether Barnett wins. But, you know, we kind of look at it a little bit like an NHL or an NFL draft, where you take the best player available. We go through lists of guys who are free agents, and we go, okay, who's coming available and how good are they? You know, we're not going to bring in guys that are 14 and 12 and have lost 3 of their last 5, but he's got a big name because he appeared on this show and that show. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to bring in a guy who's 38 years old and on the downslide and all that sort of thing. We are having such tremendous luck with these young fighters who are hungry, like Ramo, like Barnett, Jason Zencraft, Sam Alvey, all these types of fighters. I think as far as the heavyweights go, you could probably see another handful of guys coming in, but again, we're going to be very selective because we want guys that not only have good records, but one of the reasons we cut the heavyweight division a few years back was the athletes were not even athletes. They looked horrible. They were sloppy. They were fat, lazy. If they landed a punch to the chin, you know, one around, you were lucky. And then they went for a takedown, and you've got a pair of 250-pound guys rolling around on the floor together. That's not what the heavyweight division was meant to be, which is why we feel very strongly about the talent that we have in Barnett and Rama, because they're big guys, but they can move and they can do exciting things. And that level of excitement has to be there, whether you're 135er Ryan Benoit or 265er Chris Barnett. If you're not exciting, we're not interested.
Mm-hmm. Now, changing gears again, May 10th, MFC 37, True Grit, this Friday, live on Access TV. I wanted to talk a little bit to you about some of those fights. First, we already talked about the Barnett-Rama fight. Now, kicking off the Bantamweight division for MFC, Ryan Benoit versus Anthony Burchak. This is a very interesting fight because both guys are in the MFC for 2 reasons. 1, they fight at that weight, and 2, they're finishers. They're just killing everybody. They all finishes, I think, for Benoit, and I think all but 1 for Burchak and his 9 wins. So, you know, this fight, I don't know what we're going to see, because usually when 2 guys get in there who are both finishing guys, the reason why they're finishing guys is because they don't get finished. So I don't know if we're going to see a finish, but I know we're going to see a very exciting fight. What are you expecting from this matchup?
I think and I know exactly what you mean, I think we will see a finish in this fight because the build-up of this fight has been really rather venomous between the 2 guys. It was somewhat unusual, I think, in the sense that neither one of them had been with the MFC before, so, you know, it's not like they met at a weigh-in and didn't like each other, or I saw him fight on your last show and he was cocky or arrogant or whatever the case is. I think it just sort of took off because the 2 of them got into a really heated debate on Twitter, and there was some pretty good, albeit clean, there was some pretty good trash talk between the 2 of them, and I think it really stoked the fires in both of them. So I honestly, you know, I think there might be that very brief feeling out period, but I don't see like a long sort of drag out and let's see how the other guy goes. I think if one guy spots an opening, I think these 2 guys are just going to start to go at it and let the chips fall and let the chins fall, because somebody is going to go down in this fight, and I think it's going to be a really fast-paced fight. And what we were very clear with anyone coming in at 135, especially 135 division, was I was actually myself, I was somewhat against starting up a 135 division because I saw it on other shows and I got tired of hearing announcers going, oh, the frenetic action, and they're non-stop, but they're not doing anything. They're constantly moving, but they're not accomplishing anything. They're just like those guys in your office or my office who they're always buzzing around, but by the end of the day, did they actually accomplish anything? So we made it very clear to Benoit and Burchak that we'll bring in, and you guys will launch 135, but don't let us down. Don't stand there kitty pat and, just keep phonetically moving around. Do something and make it big.
Next up, a middleweight matchup between Luke Harris and Jason Zentgraf. This is a fight where nobody really knows what to expect going into it. There's a lot of people, I saw the predictions that is put on the Maximum Fighting website. A lot of people don't really know where this one's going to go. A lot of people are 100% convinced if it goes to the ground, Harris is going to tap out Zentgraf. A lot of people are saying, if it stays on the feet 100%, Zentgraf is going to knock out Luke Harris. There's a lot of people saying that, we might get a grapple fest where they both try to test each other. A lot of people are saying it's going to cancel out and it's going to be all stand-up. No one really knows exactly where this is going to go.
What do you see this? Isn't that the crazy part about it? Because, Harris has been very adamant that he's working on his stand-up because, I think he realized when he fought Joseph Henley that his stand-up was not good enough. And I know Zentgraf has been working on his stand-up quite a lot, especially Muay Thai. Both guys are exceptional on the ground. Harris has outstanding, world-class judo. So there's that to throw in there. I know a lot of people that have been saying, Zentgraf, his ground game is underrated and Harris's ground game is overrated and Zentgraf's stand-up isn't as good as people think and Harris can toss him around with some judo. So I don't know. I think it's kind of exciting in a way though when you don't really know, because you're right that the two jiu-jitsu skills might cancel each other out and it might come down to who's been actually working on their stand-up the most. Or these two guys could, just look at each other and go, okay, let's figure out whose jits is the best, and they get into a grapple war. So I really don't know. I do know that Luke has a burning desire to get back in the win column after going down in flames against Henley, and I know Zentgraf feels he is the rightful next challenger for the 185 belt. So there's a lot on the line for both of these guys, and that adds to the intrigue.
Yeah, this is a great card, and the number one reason why it's such a great card is because I have no idea who's going to win any of these fights. You sent me the predictions thing, and I felt bad because I was like, as I'm writing down who I think is going to win, I can make the exact same case for the other guy. So I don't know.
A lot of the other guys who sent that in, right in their explanation, it's like, it could go this way, but if it goes the other way, there's a lot of that back and forth, which, you can look at, let's look at Kurt Southern and Mukai Moraes. If Mukai is at his best with his stand-up, oh man, there's few strikers in the world that has his kind of electrifying talent. If Kurt Southern puts his hard hat on and goes to work with wrestling and ground and pound, that makes for a long night for Romo. So there's a lot of great back and forth battles in there. You've got Alvey and Silva. Silva was a whisker away from a first round knockout in his last outing, but then 10 seconds later gets knocked out himself. Alvey freely admits that he didn't follow his corner's advice and his game plan when he fought for the title. You better believe he wants to get back in the title picture. And you know what? That's what makes our matchmaking at the Maximum Fighting Championship so important. A lot of other shows will let their fighters pick their fights and present to you a list of opponents, and here's 6 guys you can choose from, and 3 haven't fought in 2 years, and the other guy's, his spirit isn't right, he won't fight, and et cetera, et cetera. We in the MFC will tell you, this is your matchup, shake your hand and good luck to you, because it's going to be a fight one way or another.
Yeah, Kurt Southern and Mukai Moraes, that's a rematch of a fight that happened a while ago. That's an intriguing fight because they're both in the same boat, but the way they got into that boat is very different, because Southern, he was dominating, he was looking great against Novaes, and then he took his foot off the gas for just a second, and he got submitted. And then Moraes against Spencer, the first round it looked like he was asleep, and then in the second round it looked like he was, surprised that he was in a fight, because, Spencer was just absolutely piecing him up on the feet. It was just a brilliant performance.
Spencer nearly put Romo to sleep at the end of the second round. He was on roller skates going back to his corner. And I think you're 100% right. In both guys are in a boat. Now it's the first guy who gets to the life jacket, because if Southern gets that life jacket, I know he desperately wants a piece of Novaes in a rematch, and wouldn't that make for an exciting title fight? I think, to see that fight over again with much more on the line would be fantastic. Romo needs to get to that life jacket because he was touting himself as the uncrowned MFC lightweight champion and got schooled by Graham Spencer. And he's changed his camp. He's changed a lot of things about the way he's doing business going into this fight. So, you know what? I love the analogy of both guys are in a boat. Now, the boat sprung a leak, and who's going to grab the life jacket?
And another intriguing part about this matchup is, yes, it's a rematch. Mukai Romo has improved so much. He's not just a one-dimensional striker anymore. He's putting together a more complete game. And Kurt Southern, his last fight against Novaes, I don't know how much of a factor his ring rust played in that fight, but now he's, he had a fight, and now he had a full training camp. So I don't know what we're gonna see from both guys.
I agree. I think with Moromo having changed up his camp and putting a lot more focus now on wrestling. Obviously, he has immense skills with stand-up, but he got schooled again by Graham Spencer in takedown, defense, takedown offense. It was just a mess for him. He needed to get that game plan sorted out, because obviously that's a huge strength for Kurt Southern. So, but on the other hand, I was really surprised at how good Kurt Southern's stand-up was for a quote-unquote wrestler. I mean, he had some cracking punches against Novaes, and I know that Novaes told me afterward, he said that the hurt is a great nickname for Southern, because when he hits you, it hurt a lot. So, I think the fans love Moromo, and there's a lot to love about Southern for just his, Western Canadian, put that hard hat on and get down to work and spit some chewing tobacco, and away we go. I love the stylish approach of Moromo versus the hard-nosed approach of Southern. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And now you also touched on the Sam Alvey-Jay Silva fight. In this fight, Jay Silva, I think what's going to come down in this fight is what version of Jay Silva we get, because his Achilles heel throughout his entire career has been when he takes these fights on short notice, he doesn't do that well. Was there any kind of hesitation on your end of putting him in this fight because he hasn't had that much success when he takes fights on short notice, or was he the only guy who would step up and take it on short notice? What was the thought process about putting him in?
He was the first guy offered the fight as the injury replacement, and the only call that we made, because he immediately said yes. And it was interesting because you're 100% right in that Jay Silva's had a history of taking short notice fights and not being in great shape. The thing is that he had a lengthy training camp for his MFC 36 fight against Wes Swafford. It didn't work out so well for him, but I think he was still in really good shape coming off MFC 36, that when we called him for MFC 37 as an injury replacement, he wasn't far from being in fight-ready condition. And the camp that he's at now, obviously there's a higher level of fighters there, so I think working with those guys, he's always in better shape. And I think Jay was at the point in his career where it's like, you know what, if I don't take this fight, it could be a while before I get a chance to erase what people saw of me against Wes Swafford. And the opportunity is there for him. I mean, he's not going to be fighting a guy who's going to be shooting for a takedown or, any sort of wrestling or jiu-jitsu with him. Sam Alvey's going to be right in front of him, and they're going to hit each other in the teeth and see where things lie. But, I got an immense amount of respect for both guys, especially Jay. Jay's been a fabulous guy to work with, and really excited about what he can do if he comes in the right sort of frame of mind. And because Sam Alvey is not only is he an awesome dude, he's been phenomenal to work with, but he really impressed people in his title fight by just showing how tough he was. So it's going to be a really tough fight for Jay Silva, but he does have that click in him that if he hits you, boy, it can finish a night in a hurry.
Now, with these two great middleweight fights on the business end of this card, the title, obviously with Mutapcic no longer being in the organization and no longer being the champion, a lot of people have come out and said, you know, if Zentgraf wins, he's going to fill one end of that vacant title picture. Who is possible for this other end? Is it Alvey if he gets by Jay Silva, or is it, you know, someone who will have to come in and maybe win one or two and then fight Zentgraf if he gets past Luke Harris? What's the title picture looking like?
Jason Zentgraf is first and foremost in line. He's been told that basically if he wins impressively against Luke Harris, if he finishes off Luke Harris or really dominates Luke Harris, he's first in line for the title shot. I think Sam Alvey has an inside track to it because he did fight the champion and went the distance, and it was a very close decision. He too would need a convincing result over Jay Silva, and after that, there's a couple of new guys on the horizon who could make things very interesting at 185, and there's also the distinct possibility that both these guys lose these fights, and then the 185 division becomes really open for discussion again. So, but certainly Zentgraf and Alvey are on the inside track.
Where exactly do Joseph Henley, Wes Swafford, Jason Flynn, some of the other guys in the middleweight division, where do they all fit in here? Will they be on MFC 38 card? What are the plans for some of those guys?
All three of those guys are expected to be back within the next 1 to 2 cards. Henley's had some real difficulties with injuries. Obviously, he sustained some pretty dramatic injuries in the Mutapcic fight, and he's also got a hand issue now as well. So I'm not sure at this point in time when exactly we would see Joseph Henley back. We'd certainly like to see him before the end of the year. Jason Flynn will be back within the next couple of fight cards, and Wes Swafford will be back as well. We really appreciated what Wes did coming in on short notice and picking up a shocking win against Jay Silva, especially after he got nearly KO'd. But Wes Swafford will be back as well, and those guys are really good depth guys for the 185 division, who can not only provide you with that depth, but they are, particularly a guy like Swafford, if he could get back and win 2 fights, he's definitely a title picture kind of guy. But these guys, we give them the opportunity, and they have to meet it halfway, right? So. I would certainly think a guy like Swafford has an opportunity to come back and make a statement, and now it's just going to be up to him.
Now, is this fight card, or is this event sold out? Is it a sellout right now?
We have probably in the neighborhood of about 100 tickets left, which is really good on fight week. Edmonton is a notorious last-minute ticket buying town, so to have 100 tickets or so left going into the last few days is great. We have a lot of media planned for tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that usually brings out the people to buy off those last tickets. So I'm expecting a huge crowd, probably one of our biggest crowds in the last couple of years. And it's going to be exciting. And, if you can't be there live, we obviously love it when people tune in to watch us on Access TV Fights with Michael Chiavallo and Pat Miletich. They're awesome broadcasters and awesome broadcast partners to have. So, if you're living a little bit out of the Edmonton live viewing range, we definitely would say to tune into Access TV Fights, because it'll be great. And for the first time ever, we're going to have our preliminaries. The undercard will be also shown live, and that'll be on the MFC Facebook page. So you can tune in and catch some pretty exciting undercard fights as well. And those will go off at 8:15 Eastern on Friday night on the MFC Facebook page. And all you got to do is hit like, and you can be part of the action.
Yeah, this card is so stacked that we didn't even mention the Treadwell brothers, Mike and Thomas. They're going to be fighting in the heavyweight division. So that's definitely a reason to tune into those Facebook prelims. That's kind of cool.
We've been talking about doing the prelims for a little while in one method or another on pay-per-view, and I think that brother versus brother fight just kind of sparked us to finally say, okay, let's not monkey around anymore. Let's get the prelims on TV one way or another, and what was great about it is that Access TV is providing us with all of their equipment and camera talent and things like that. So we just have to provide some different play-by-play people, and we're excited about that because Jason Greger, who also works for Access TV during the MFC events, he does all the in-ring interviews and backstage interviews. He'll be front and center doing the play-by-play during the Facebook prelims. And a guy that I'm sure you know rather well, Ryan the Kid McGilvery, will be providing the color commentary on the prelims. So it's a really cool duo to have doing the MFC Facebook fights.
Scott, thank you for being so liberal with your time. Real quick before I let you go, where can people follow you to keep up with what you got going on, and where can people follow the MFC to find out what the MFC's got going on?
You bet. I'll spit it out. There we go. www.maximumfighting.com is the website. So www.maximumfighting.com. We've got all the updates, lots of new updates coming up this week with all of the press and everything for MFC 37. We invite you again to follow the MFC on Twitter at Maximum Fighting. You can follow me on Twitter as well at ScottMaxFight, so ScottMaxFight. And of course, like I said before, get on the MFC Facebook page because you'll get all of the updates there, and you can tune in to watch the MFC 37 prelims live on our Facebook page.
Scott, first, thank you for taking the time to talk and do this interview. And second, thank you for, everything you've done for me, setting up the interviews, all that stuff, getting back to me, very, very quickly whenever I have a question or a time change or anything like that. So I really appreciate, everything that you've done for me, and I wish you and MFC continued success.
Well, Mike, we appreciate your coverage. It's been fantastic. We really enjoy the interviews with all our guys. And our guys like talking to you as well, and Mark does too. So, right back at you. Thank you for all the great coverage, and we hope you enjoy MFC 37 now watching it on Access TV.